Sylvia, this table is for family. Go find a spot outside. Those words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I kept my face neutral as my cousin Brandon smirked, and the others around the table grinned. The waiter had just placed a bill in front of me. $3,000. I took a slow sip of my coffee and chuckled softly to myself. They had absolutely no idea who was covering it tonight. Before I tell you how this night unfolded, I want to know something. Have you ever been treated like you do not belong by your own family? Drop a comment and let me know where you are watching from. And if you have ever felt invisible in a room full of people who should love you, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story is for you. Trust me, you will want to see how this ends. Let me take you back to how it all started. My name is Sylvia. I am 32 years old and I live in Portland, Oregon. I work as a senior software engineer at a large tech company. My salary is well into six figures. But if you saw me on the street, you would never know it. I drive a 10-year-old Honda Civic. I wear jeans and plain shirts. I do not flash designer labels or expensive watches. I guess you could say I am comfortable being invisible. It is safer that way. Quieter, less complicated. But it was not always like this. Growing up, I was the kid nobody paid attention to. My parents divorced when I was 8. My mom passed away from cancer when I was 12. My dad remarried quickly, and honestly, he just kind of forgot about me. I was raised by my grandmother, Helen. She is 78 now, and she is the only person in my family who ever truly saw me. She did not have much money. We lived in a small apartment on the edge of town. But she gave me everything she had. Love, stability, a sense of worth. The rest of my family, though, they were different. My cousin Brandon is 2 years older than me. He is the golden child. His mom, my Aunt Martha, owns a small import business that my grandfather left behind. Brandon works there. He drives a new Mercedes. He wears tailored suits. He talks loud and laughs louder. Then there is Jessica. She is my other cousin, 30 years old, married to a banker named Kyle. They live in a big house in the suburbs. She does marketing for a startup and loves to post about her perfect life on social media. Growing up, I watched them get everything: private schools, new cars at 16, college paid in full. Meanwhile, I was working as a dishwasher at 15 just to help my grandmother with rent. I got a scholarship to study computer science. I took out loans. I worked 60-hour weeks while going to school full-time. I graduated with honors, but only my grandmother came to the ceremony. Everyone else was too busy. They were on vacation. They had work. They had excuses. At family gatherings, I was always the afterthought. At Jessica's wedding, I was not asked to be part of the bridal party. I sat at a table near the back with distant relatives I had never met. During Christmas dinners, Brandon would make jokes. He would say things like, "Sylvia is the black sheep of the family, but hey, every family needs one, right?" Everyone would laugh. I would smile and pretend it did not sting. But it did. Every single time. So I made a decision. I would prove myself. Not to them. To me. I worked harder than anyone I knew. I taught myself coding languages at night. I studied machine learning and artificial intelligence. I networked. I applied to jobs relentlessly. And slowly, over the course of 10 years, I climbed. I went from junior developer making $40,000 a year to senior engineer making $180,000. I invested smart. I bought stock early in companies that exploded. I got into crypto before it went mainstream. I purchased 2 small rental properties. Today, my net worth is over $2 million. But nobody in my family knows that. I still drive my old Honda. I still live in a modest rental. I do not post about my life online. I do not brag. Because the truth is, I did not want them to know. I did not want them coming around suddenly because I had money. I did not want fake love. My grandmother knew I was doing well. She knew I had a good job, but even she did not know the full extent of it. And I liked it that way. Then came the invitation. My grandmother was turning 78. She wanted a family dinner. She wanted everyone together. She specifically asked me to come. I could not say no to her. So I agreed. I knew I would see Brandon. I knew I would see Jessica and Kyle and Aunt Martha and all the others. I knew they would look down on me. But I also decided to do something special. I called a restaurant called the Riverside. It is a 5-star spot overlooking the Willamette River. Gorgeous views, elegant decor, expensive menu. I booked a private dining room for 12 people. I paid a deposit of $1,500 up front, and I told them I would cover the entire bill at the end of the night. This was my gift to my grandmother. A beautiful dinner, a memory she deserved. The night arrived. I got to the Riverside early. I parked my Honda in the lot and walked inside. The host greeted me warmly. "Everything is ready, Mr. Sylvia. Your party can arrive anytime." I thanked him and waited near the entrance. 20 minutes later, cars started pulling up. Brandon arrived first in his gleaming black Mercedes. Jessica and Kyle came next in a white Tesla. Aunt Martha and my other Aunt Linda arrived in a Lexus. They all stepped out looking polished. Designer handbags, expensive shoes, confident smiles. When they walked into the restaurant, their eyes widened. "Wow," Brandon said, looking around. "Who picked this place?" My grandmother arrived last. She looked beautiful in a simple blue dress. She hugged me tightly. "Thank you for coming, sweetheart." I smiled. "I would not miss it, Grandma." She looked around the restaurant impressed. "This is lovely. Who arranged this?" Before I could answer, Jessica jumped in. "I think Brandon did. He always picks the best spots." Brandon grinned but said nothing. Nobody asked me. Nobody even considered it might have been me. We were led to the private dining room. It had floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the river. The table was set with white linens and fresh flowers. Everyone took their seats. My grandmother sat at the head. Brandon sat to her right. Jessica and Kyle sat across from him. Aunt Martha and Aunt Linda filled in the sides. I ended up near the middle, quieter than the rest. As we settled in, the comments started. "Sylvia, you are here," Brandon said with a smirk. "Still driving that old Honda," Jessica laughed. "How is the tech job still coding all day?" There was a condescending tone in her voice. Like coding was beneath her. Like my work did not matter. I nodded. "It is going well. Thanks for asking." Kyle, Jessica's husband, leaned forward. "What kind of car do you drive again, Honda?" "Well, it is practical, I guess. Not everyone needs luxury." He said it like he was being kind, but it felt like a slap. Aunt Martha chimed in. "Sylvia, dear, you are 32 now. Do not you think it is time to settle down, find a nice girl, or focus on moving up in your career?" Brandon added. "I mean, coding is fine, but there is no real growth unless you move into management or start your own thing. You are kind of stuck, are you not?" I took a breath. "I am doing fine. Really. Today is about Grandma." My grandmother smiled at me, but I could see the discomfort in her eyes. She tried to change the subject. "So how has everyone's year been?" But the damage was done. The waiter came to take our orders. Brandon did not hesitate. "Let us get the Wagyu steak, and bring us your best wine. It is Grandma's birthday." Jessica ordered the lobster risotto. Kyle ordered oysters to start and Chilean sea bass. They ordered appetizers, foie gras, truffle fries, caviar. The waiter brought out a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon, $300. They poured glasses and toasted. To Grandma, to family. I raised my water glass. When the waiter got to me, I kept it simple. "Grilled chicken salad, please. And just water." Brandon laughed. "That is it. Come on, Sylvia, live a little." "Oh, wait, probably watching the budget, right?" The table erupted in laughter. Even Aunt Linda giggled. I forced a smile. "I am fine, thanks." My grandmother looked at me with sadness. I gave her a small nod. "It is okay, Grandma." The food came. It was beautiful, plated like art. They ate and drank and talked loudly. Brandon bragged about a trip to the Maldives he was planning. Jessica talked about her new furniture. Kyle discussed his latest investment portfolio. They ordered a second bottle of wine, $400 this time. Nobody asked me anything. I sat quietly eating my salad, watching them. Then Brandon started talking about real estate. He had just bought a second condo as an investment. "6 figures, baby," he said, grinning. "When you are successful like me, you have to think long-term." Jessica nodded. "Totally. Kyle and I are planning to have a baby next year. Life really comes together when you have a stable career and a partner you know." She glanced at me. The implication was clear. I did not have either of those things. At least not in their eyes. Aunt Martha turned to me. Sylvia, you are still single, right? I nodded. Maybe I can set you up with someone, Jessica offered. I have a friend who is single. She is not picky. The words stung. Not picky. Like I was a last resort. Like I was someone who could not do better. I smiled tightly. I appreciate it, but I am okay. Brandon leaned back in his chair. You know, Sylvia, you should really let me help you. My company is always looking for people. Maybe you could work in operations or something. Not coding, obviously. Something with more potential. I did not respond. I just nodded and looked at my plate. My grandmother reached over and squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. It was her way of saying, I see you. I love you. Hang in there. After dessert, Brandon stood up. Okay, let us get a family photo. Grandma in the middle. Everyone gathered around the table. I started to stand, but Brandon held up his hand. Actually, Sylvia, this table is for family. You know, the core family. Why don't you go find a spot outside? There are some tables on the patio. You will be more comfortable there. The room went silent for a beat. Then Jessica nodded. Yeah, it will be less crowded for the photo. A few others murmured in agreement. Aunt Martha said nothing, but she did not object either. My grandmother stood up immediately. Brandon, that is terrible. Sylvia is family. Brandon waved her off. Grandma, relax. We are just taking a photo. Sylvia does not mind, right? He looked at me with a challenge in his eyes, daring me to make a scene. I felt my throat tighten. My chest ached. But I stayed calm. I stood up slowly. It is fine, Grandma. I will step outside for a bit. She grabbed my arm. Sylvia, no. I smiled at her. Really, it is okay. I could use some fresh air anyway. I walked out before anyone could say another word. The patio was quiet. There were a few small tables overlooking the river. The lights from the city reflected on the water. I sat down at one of the tables and took a deep breath. My hands were shaking slightly. Not from anger, from hurt, from years of being treated like I was less than, like I did not matter. I looked through the glass doors into the dining room. They were all gathered around my grandmother, smiling for the camera, laughing, acting like nothing had happened, acting like I was not sitting outside alone. A waiter came out. Are you all right, sir? Can I get you anything? Just a coffee, please. Black. He nodded and disappeared. A few minutes later, he returned with a steaming cup. As he set it down, he said quietly, By the way, Mr. Sylvia, everything inside is going smoothly. I looked up at him. He knew. He knew I was the one who booked the room, who paid the deposit, who would be covering the bill. I nodded. Good to hear. Thank you. He gave me a small, knowing smile and walked away. I sipped my coffee and looked back inside. They were still taking photos. Brandon had his arm around my grandmother. Jessica was laughing at something Kyle said. They looked like the perfect family. And I was outside. Alone. But strangely, I felt calm. For the first time in years, I felt free. I did not need their approval. I did not need their validation. I had built a life I was proud of. I had worked hard. I had succeeded. And none of them knew. About 20 minutes later, I saw movement inside. They were finishing up. The waiter was clearing plates. Then I saw him bring over a black leather folder. The bill. He placed it in the center of the table. Brandon reached for it confidently. He opened it. And then his face changed. It went from smug to shocked in an instant. His mouth fell open. $3,000. What? Jessica leaned over. Let me see. Her eyes went wide. That cannot be right. Kyle grabbed the folder. He scanned the bill. 2 bottles of expensive wine. Multiple steaks. Lobster. Oysters. Appetizers. Desserts. Tax. Tip. It was all there. All accurate. Aunt Martha spoke up. Who ordered all this? Brandon looked around. Well, we all did. Jessica frowned. I thought Grandma was paying. My grandmother stood up, furious. What, I never said that. And after how you treated Sylvia tonight, I am not paying a cent. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the patio. Brandon called after her, but she did not stop. Inside, chaos erupted. Jessica said, We can split it. 3,000 divided by, that is still a lot each. Kyle shook his head. I did not order that much. Maybe we should pay based on what we ate. Aunt Martha looked at Brandon. You said you had this covered. Brandon's face turned red. I said we got it. as in all of us. They started arguing. Voices rose. The waiter stood nearby, uncomfortable waiting. My grandmother came outside. She sat down next to me heavily. I am so sorry, sweetheart. They were terrible. I put my hand on hers. It is okay, Grandma. I am used to it. She shook her head, tears in her eyes. You should not have to be. We sat in silence for a moment. Then the waiter approached. Excuse me, Mr. Sylvia. About the bill inside. He handed me the leather folder. I opened it. $3,147.80. I took another sip of my coffee. I glanced through the glass at them. They were still arguing, red-faced, panicked. I chuckled softly. They really have no idea, do they? My grandmother looked confused. Sylvia, what do you mean? I smiled at her. Grandma, I booked this restaurant. I was planning to surprise you. Her eyes went wide. Sylvia. I pulled out my wallet. Inside was a black American Express card. My grandmother stared at it. I handed it to the waiter. Thank you for your patience tonight. And please add another $100 on top of the tip for your trouble. The waiter's face lit up. Thank you so much, sir. It has been an interesting evening. He took the card and walked back inside. My grandmother was speechless. How I have a good job, Grandma. A really good job. I have been investing. I own rental properties. I have been doing well for a long time. I just did not tell anyone. She started crying. Oh, sweetheart. I hugged her. You deserved a nice birthday dinner. I am sorry it turned out like this. She pulled back and looked at me. You have nothing to be sorry for. You are incredible. Inside, the waiter approached their table. Excuse me, everyone. The bill has been taken care of. Silence. Jessica looked up. What, by who? The waiter gestured toward the patio. By the gentleman outside. They all turned. Through the glass, they saw me sitting with my grandmother. The waiter was walking back toward me with my card and a receipt. I looked up and met Brandon's eyes. I raised my coffee cup in a mock toast. I smiled. I even winked. Then I gave a little wave. Brandon's face went pale. No way. Jessica's mouth hung open. Did he just pay $3,000? Kyle stared. That is a black Amex. You need serious money to have that. Aunt Martha was frozen. Aunt Linda looked like she had seen a ghost. They all stood up and rushed outside. Brandon got to me first. Sylvia, we did not know. I stood up calmly. Did not know what Brandon, that I could afford this, or that I deserved to be treated like family, he stammered. That is not, I mean, thank you. We will pay you back. I shook my head. No need. It was a gift. For Grandma's birthday. Like I planned from the beginning. Jessica stepped forward. But how did you drive a Honda? I looked at her evenly. I drive a Honda because I do not need to prove anything to anyone. I actually have a Tesla at home too, but I prefer simple things. Aunt Martha finally spoke. Your job. You said you were just a coder. I am a senior software engineer. I make good money. I have been investing since I was 23. I own 2 rental properties, but none of that matters, does it? Because to all of you, I will always be the black sheep who does not belong. The silence was thick. Brandon tried again. We are sorry. We did not mean. I held up my hand. It is fine. Enjoy your evening. Grandma ready to go? She nodded and stood. We walked past them without another word. In the parking lot, the waiter caught up to us. He handed me my card and the receipt. Total was $3,247.80. I signed it. Then I pulled out $50 cash from my wallet. Thanks for everything tonight. He took it gratefully. It was my pleasure, sir. I helped my grandmother into the Honda. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. They were all still standing there. Stunned, embarrassed, guilty. The drive home was quiet at first. Then my grandmother spoke. You did not have to do that, sweetheart. I glanced at her. Yes, I did. You deserved a nice birthday dinner. I am sorry it turned out like that. She wiped her eyes. I am the one who is sorry. The way they treated you. It is not your fault, Grandma. You have always been there for me. She reached over and squeezed my hand. I always knew you would be successful. Not because of money, but because of who you are. You have a good heart, Sylvia. You could have embarrassed them even more, but you stayed classy. That is the difference between you and them. I told her more on the drive. I told her about my career, how I started as a junior developer making barely anything, how I worked 70-hour weeks learning new skills, how I got promoted again and again, how I started investing early, how I made smart choices with stocks and real estate, how I now had a net worth over $2 million. She cried the whole time, not sad tears, proud tears. I wanted to tell you sooner, I said, but I did not want anything to change between us. She shook her head. Nothing will ever change, baby. I loved you when you had nothing, and I love you now. That is what family is. That night the text started. Brandon sent one at 11 p.m. Sylvia, I am truly sorry. What I said was inexcusable. Can we talk? Jessica called the next morning. I did not answer. She left a voicemail. I feel terrible. I never realized. I am sorry for all those years. Please call me back. Aunt Martha sent an email. It was long, full of explanations and justifications and apologies. She invited me to a private dinner to talk. Kyle even texted, "Respect, man. I was wrong about you." I did not respond right away. I needed time. Time to process. Time to heal. Time to decide what I wanted. After a week, I replied to Brandon, "I appreciate the apology. I need some time." I sent similar messages to the others. I was not angry anymore, but I was not ready to just forgive and move on either. Over the next month, I focused on myself. I went to therapy a few times. I talked about my childhood, about feeling invisible, about the pain of being treated like I did not matter by people who were supposed to love me. My therapist helped me see something important. It was not my fault. Their behavior said everything about them and nothing about me. I had spent years trying to earn approval from people who were never going to give it, and now finally I was free from that need. I started to realize other things too. Success was not about proving anyone wrong. It was about being at peace with yourself. Money and status did not define my worth. Kindness did. Integrity did. Staying humble even when I had every right to brag. Those were the things that mattered. I also realized that real family was not about blood. It was about who showed up, who loved you unconditionally. My grandmother was my family. The rest, they were relatives. 6 weeks after the dinner, Jessica reached out again. She asked if we could meet for lunch. I agreed. We met at a small cafe. It was awkward at first, but then she said something that surprised me. "I have been jealous of you for years." I stared at her. "Jealous? Of me?" She nodded. "You always seemed so free. You did not care what anyone thought. You did your own thing. I was always trying to impress everyone, trying to live up to expectations. And I realize now, I was miserable. I did not know what to say." She continued. "I am sorry, Sylvia, for everything, for all the comments, for not standing up for you, for treating you like you did not matter. You did matter. You do matter." We talked for 2 hours. It did not fix everything, but it was a start. Brandon sent a check for $3,200 with a handwritten letter. The letter was raw, honest. He admitted he had always felt threatened by me. That deep down he knew I was smarter and harder working, that he covered his insecurity with arrogance. I did not cash the check, but I kept the letter. 2 months after that dinner, Thanksgiving came around. My grandmother wanted to host. She asked if I would come. I almost said no. But then I thought about it. I thought about forgiveness. Not for them, for me. So I went. The atmosphere was completely different. They were respectful, genuine. Before we ate, Brandon stood up. He looked at me. I was an ass. "Sylvia, you have been more gracious than I deserve. I am sorry. Not just for that night. For years of treating you like you were less than. You are not. You never were." The room was silent. Then Jessica spoke. "I am sorry too. We all are." The dinner was nice. Not perfect, but nice. They asked about my work with real respect. I shared a little, but I did not make it the focus. We talked about other things, life, goals, memories. My grandmother was happy. That was what mattered. After that, things changed. Not back to how they were before. We would never be close like that. But we were civil, polite. We saw each other at holidays, we texted occasionally, and I was okay with that. We were family, but we did not have to be best friends. Looking back now, that $3,000 dinner was worth every penny. Not because of what happened, but because it finally freed me. For years, I carried the weight of their judgment. I worked hard, partly to prove I was not the failure they thought I was. But that night showed me something important. I did not need to prove anything to anyone. Real success was not about the car you drive or the house you own. It was about being at peace with yourself. It was about knowing your worth did not depend on other people's opinions. Brandon and I talk now. We are not close, but we are civil. Jessica and I have coffee sometimes. The family dynamics have shifted, but the most important change was in me. I learned that the family you choose to keep close matters more than the one you are born into. And sometimes the best revenge is not proving people wrong. It is proving yourself right. That Honda Civic, I still drive it most days. Not because I cannot afford better, but because it reminds me of who I am beneath everything else. And that black Amex card. It sits in my wallet, quiet and unassuming, just like me. Because at the end of the day, the people who matter do not need to see your bank account to know your value. And the ones who do, well, they were never really family to begin with. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from people who did not see your worth? Have you ever been underestimated and then proven everyone wrong? Drop a comment below and share your story. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel because I share stories like this every week. Stories about real people navigating real struggles. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who feels invisible. Someone who is working hard in silence. Let them know they are not alone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And remember, your value is not determined by people who cannot see it. Keep going. Keep building. Keep believing in yourself. The right people will notice. And the ones who do not, they were never meant to be part of your story anyway. Take care of yourself. You deserve it.